One person. Overwhelming comprehension. Starting from the Gu body Holy Child introduction. Chen Dao traveled to a world under one person and became Chen Duo's childhood sweetheart. He was one of the Gu children trained by the Medicine Immortal Society. At the moment of despair, awaken your supernatural powers and supernatural understanding. You have learned basic poison techniques, taken highly toxic substances that change your constitution, felt the changes in your body, and created the technique of 10,000 poisons. Holy body, you have learned the cultivation method of Gu Mu and gained some insights in your heart. You have created the technique of concentric Gu Yu technique. You personally learn Gu and poison cultivation, combined with what you have learned, to cultivate the divine Gu, six-winged golden cicada. You have read all the cultivation methods of poison gong and Gu poison, and you have innovated and created a possible immortal method. The Medicine King Classic. As his studies deepened, Chen Dao became interested in various schools of thought. In order to collect more schools of martial arts and embark on one's own path, it is also to take Chen Duo away. Chen Dao decided to first destroy his Medicine Immortal Society. The king of the outsiders, from this moment on. P.S. The protagonist takes a temporary worker route, working with Chen Duo as both temporary workers, learning various cults and heretics. Gu poison, sword pill, 5 ghost transport, ghost and divine art, 1000 techniques, thief gate, external pill, imperial charm. Chapter 1. The Medicine Immortal Society, Overwhelming Enlightenment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This batch is the most talented, put them all away. Chen Dao was confused and heard many voices, including adults and children, making a lot of noise. When Chen Dao opened his eyes, he found himself being carried into a cave. There were many children sitting around, each looking around 10 years old. They were pressed down by a group of people dressed in plain clothes and looking like farmers. Chen Dao saw very clearly that these children were trembling all over, as if enduring great pain. But they are desperately suppressing it, afraid to shout or move. Just sit cross-legged, hands in front of you, like a seal. Tai Chi Yin. When Chen Dao saw this gesture, the name of the gesture and all the relevant information came to mind. And he himself made this gesture subconsciously, just like the painful memory formed after being trained thousands of times. He looked down and found his hand. So small. What's going on? Chen Dao's heart trembled, but it was this movement that led him to hear the sound of breaking through the air. Pop. The whip landed on Chen Dao, leaving a red mark on his thin back. The sound was loud, frightening the children around him and quickly closing their eyes. Chen Dao could feel their fear. Chen Dao endured the pain, the heat behind him, and the memories that had just exploded in his mind, constantly reminding him, absolutely, absolutely not making a sound. He now knows where he is, he has traveled to a world under one person. But those who are willing to die will become the remnants of the Medicine Immortal Society, one of the selected Gu Tong. After adapting for a while, Chen Dao finally read out the few memories of the poor boy who had already died in his mind. His predecessor, also known as Chen Dao, was Chen Duo's friend and the only brave boy who dared to whisper to Chen Duo. Unfortunately, he still couldn't resist and died in the experiment of testing a new type of Gu poison. Just as the members of the Medicine Immortal Society wanted to throw away his body, he miraculously gained breath. Recalling this, Chen Dao felt fortunate to have traveled in a timely manner. If it were later, it might have become food for poisonous insects. It was precisely because of Chen Dao's miraculous resurrection from death that his talent level was elevated and he became one of the 49 experimental subjects. He filled the missing space and was carried to this final training ground. As a fake fan who has watched anime under one person, searched for explanations, understood the background, knew the characters and plot, but did not read comics. Of course Chen Dao knows what a medicinal immortal would be. This is an evil organization that is not enough to appease people's grievances even after being cut by thousands of knives. That dehumanizing operation, even if a pervert sees it, they must call it a pervert. The thought of those terrifying experiments and training in his memory made Chen Dao feel a headache. Chen Dao calculated that he is now 10 years old, which means there are nearly 2 years left until he can go anywhere to eliminate the Medicine Immortal Society. 2 years, at least 2 years must pass. They still have to live with Chen Duo, but according to what the Medicine Immortal Association wants, they only need the last surviving Gu body holy child. Is this too desperate? And just as he was feeling frustrated and unsure how to break the game, a pleasant ding-dong sound rang in his ear. The anti-heavenly understanding system has been activated. The host has been loaded with divine powers. Anti-heavenly understanding system. Chen Dao suddenly opened his eyes and then forcefully controlled himself to close them, quickly controlling his emotions. He never expected that he would also have the benefits of a traveler. After a moment of calmness, Chen Dao checked the functions of this system. This system only has one function, which is to load the host with the supernatural power of supernatural understanding, and then broadcast what the host has understood. After understanding the system, Chen Dao is ready to test it. After all, if you want to resist the Medicine Immortal Society, strength is the most important factor. He doesn't want to be tortured for an extra 2 years, the earlier he goes out, the better. He took a deep breath and began to relearn the techniques in his mind. As one of the Gu Tong, his predecessor was forcibly instilled and learned a lot of corresponding knowledge. Every Gu child can be considered an expert in Gu and poison, even those from big sects and centuries-old, millennium-old families cannot compare to these 10-year-old children in this aspect. Chen Dao received this knowledge, and as soon as he had an idea, something immediately appeared in his mind. Gu Du Gong. This is a basic Gu poison technique that teaches people how to combine medicine and Gu poison, transform their bodies, and transform themselves into Gu body's evil method. Yes, this is an evil law. It is not the orthodox Miao territory or Miao village martial arts. This technique is very cruel. It requires selecting newborn babies and soaking them in medicine to change their physical condition from birth. After reaching a certain age, various toxins start to be injected, gradually increasing. Only when the toxins can be tolerated can Gu be injected. When Gu enters the body, the members of the Medicine Immortal Society will lead these children to practice this Gu poison technique, guiding them to enter the 5 internal organs and joints, and transforming them into nests suitable for the growth of primitive Gu. Finally, inject the primitive Gu. As long as they can hold on, they will become the Gu body holy child in their dreams. And in this process, these children being tested will be enduring excruciating pain that ordinary people cannot imagine at all times. This kind of torture, reading www.uukangshu.net, can easily destroy the spirit of a normal adult. I really deserve to die. Chen Dao gritted his teeth, and now he hates these guys from the Medicine Immortal Society. Why? The first reason is because of empathy. No one wants to see children suffer. The second reason is that this is a thought that a normal person should have, and for those who destroy human nature, of course, it is best to kill them. It's best because Chen Dao has already felt the inhuman torture. Although this body has adapted, the soul that once adapted to this pain has merged with Chen Dao. Chen Dao is Chen Dao, all memories are inherited, but the ability to bear pain is something that cannot be inherited. Chen Dao felt it. He can clearly perceive his internal organs and feel something crawling inside. Continuously, densely packed. It's like a centipede crawling along the walls of its organs, with its sharp feet moving back and forth on the walls. Pierce, pull out, pierce, pull out. Time and time again. His pain was amplified, and the slight stabbing pain reflected on him, like being pierced by 10,000 needles at the same time, was excruciating. Chen Dao was trembling all over, but he forced himself to hold back and continue reading the damn evil law. As he delved deeper and deeper, Chen Dao gradually entered a state of mystery, and countless sparks of wisdom splashed in his mind, starting to unconsciously transform this evil method. Due to his sudden enlightenment, Chen Dao temporarily forgot about the pain on his body, and his trembling also subsided. As his breathing stabilized, the members of the Medicine Immortal Society responsible for taking care of him also noticed his changes. Chapter 2. 5 Elements of Gu Technique. The Holy Communion of 10,000 Poisons. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. People who practice Taoism breathe long and steadily, which is a manifestation of high physical fitness and can only be achieved after reaching a certain level of control over the body. At this moment, Chen Dao entered this state. As he breathed, qi began to converge towards him, forming a small vortex around him. Not only qi was gathered here, but also the smoke floating in the cave venue. People from the Medicine Immortal Society will place incense burners on site, which contain a single herb to assist the Gu children in their cultivation. At the same time, it is also a poison used to strengthen the primitive Gu in the bodies of Gu children. The smoke formed by the burning of these medicines will be passively absorbed by the Gu children, and the amount that each person can absorb is similar. But if they can absorb more, Gu Tong himself will become stronger and it will be easier to win in the final competition. The Gu children themselves do not know. After all, the people of the Medicine Immortal Society will not tell them these things. Without anyone taking the initiative to speak, they themselves are not good at thinking, they just rely on instinct to absorb, that's all. Those cigarettes, along with qi, were absorbed by Chen Dao and began to nourish the primitive Gu in his body. Oh, how talented is that! It's really rare to actively absorb medicinal smoke. The person in charge of observation exclaimed in surprise and then left the scene to report the situation to their sect leader. And just after he left, more changes began to appear on Chen Dao's body. During cultivation, there will only be one guardian in the square. After the guards went to report the news, the children on site who had not yet completely erased their nature relaxed visibly. Beside Chen Dao, a girl dressed in gray clothes quietly opened her eyes. Her eyes were calm, with a pair of green pupils. After quietly opening them, she turned her head to look at Chen Dao beside her, which was slightly imperceptible. Strange, today's Chen Dao seems a bit different. Where is it different? She thought to herself that a troubled expression appeared on her face. Her nature, which was not completely suppressed, prompted her to start thinking. Chen Dao is the only person who can speak to her and dares to speak to her. For Chen Duo, such a Chen Dao is like the sun, a beam of light in her life. And now, this beam of light seems to have changed. Becoming brighter. Chen Dao doesn't know much about the Gu body holy child. In my previous life, when I read Chen Duo's article, I only mentioned that the holy child with a Gu body was actually a Gu. You can use your own internal organs as a nest, cultivate primitive Gu with your own qi as raw material, and then transform it into various Gu techniques through various means and techniques. This kind of Gu body holy child is inherently highly toxic. Apart from maintaining the face, the skin, fluids, and other aspects of the body are all highly toxic. Ordinary people die at the touch of it, without exception. Now Chen Dao's body has not reached that level. Although his body is completely poisonous and his internal organs have also changed, there is still some distance from the terrifying level of Chen Duo in the original plot. So there's still a chance now. Chen Dao is very excited, he is now full of confidence. You have observed the Gu Du Gong, and gained a new understanding of Gu. You have observed the 5 internal organs of the human body, and by analogy, the great path of the human body is revealed before your eyes. You have comprehended the technique, 5 elements Gu Shu. In your imagination, you think of the Zerg mother nest. You try to build a nest inside your body, and the poison inside your body is collected by you. You successfully control the generation of the primitive Gu, and you have come to understand the perfect Gu body. You have also come to understand the immortal law, 10,000 poisons holy body. The technique of 5 elements poisonous Gu. The holy communion of 10,000 poisons. When this cultivation method was comprehended, Chen Dao's body underwent earth-shattering changes. The 10,000 poison holy body and the 5 elements Gu poison technique together completely transformed his body. On the basis of Chen Dao's original body, the 5 elements Gu technique transformed his 5 internal organs into living vessels with the attributes of the 5 elements. The Gu that enters the vessel will be transformed into medicinal Gu with the 5 elements attribute. These initial medicinal Gu lies inside his 5 organs, protecting them in daily life, repairing and treating them in critical moments, and strengthening them. And the so-called nest is the gathering of a poison pill in the lower pill field, which is the core of the 10,000 poisons holy body. This poison pill replaced Chen Dao's body, becoming the storage place for Gu poison and the birthplace of primitive Gu. As long as there is this poison pill, Chen Dao himself is not poisonous. Only after using the poison pill can the toxin be used, and at other times, he is no different from a normal person. All the side effects of the original Gu body holy child have been solved by the 10,000 poison holy body. The holy body of 10,000 poisons and the 5 elements Gu technique complement each other, one controlling, one enhancing, perfect. I really realized it. Chen Dao was overjoyed. With these 2 skills by his side, he could definitely take the initiative in the days to come. But he quickly calmed down. Realizing these methods is just the first step, and the key next is how to gain initiative, as well as how to teach Chen Duo the methods of the 10,000 poison holy body. As soon as Chen Dao opened his eyes, he felt a gaze. That gaze was not as fierce as the previous guards, so Chen Dao turned his head in a grand manner. And then, I had a perfect eye contact with the girl. "Are you looking at me?" Chen Dao asked softly. And this gentle sentence was like a bomb falling into deep water. Exploding the silent world in the eyes of the child, shattering a crack in her twisted, suppressed, and sealed soul. Why does he dare to speak up? This fool, doesn't he know that speaking up will be punished? Wait, I'm also experiencing emotional fluctuations now. It's over, it's over. I'll definitely be beaten to death later. The girl was filled with fear. But the girl wouldn't know that this sudden break would completely rewrite her fate. Once you have seen the truth, you cannot survive in lies. This sentence is just right here. Once that seal is broken, the chains that bind their nature at zhaoshuyuan.com will be broken. Even if the cognitive shackles given by those guys are firm, they will never be able to lock Chen Duo anymore. Chen Dao couldn't help but smile when he saw the other person's pupils shaking. He smiled very gently because he knew that the other person was Chen Duo, his only friend who spoke. However, the other party does not have this name yet. The name Chen Duo was chosen by Chen Junyan after being rescued. Of course, Chen Dao will call her Chen Duo now, and when the time is right, give her that name. Don't speak. Chen Dao saw that the guard was not there, so he immediately took advantage of this opportunity and reached out to the ground, releasing a medicinal Gu. Chen Duo's already wide eyes widened again, and of course she knew what it was. It is precisely because she knew that she was so surprised. Although everyone's cultivation progress is the same, why was Chen Dao able to release Gu from the body? The medicinal Gu crawled very quickly and was extremely secretive, until it reached Chen Duo's palm and no one noticed it. When the medicinal Gu lay on Chen Duo's palm, Chen Duo heard the sound carried by the medicinal Gu. Absorb it, practice according to the techniques I have given you, and keep it as it is usually. Don't expose it, let's wait for the opportunity. Transmission Gu. Chen Duo was even more surprised. This kind of Gu was also one of the basic Gu techniques they practiced, but the refining method was quite difficult. Even Chen Duo was unable to refine it successfully. Unexpectedly, Chen Dao succeeded in refining it. Chen Duo absorbed this Gu and then a lot of information came out of her mind. The 5 elements Gu technique. The holy communion of 10,000 poisons. This. Chen Duo looked at Chen Dao incredulously, and the expression on her small face could no longer be described as shocking. It's just. It's like a ghost. Chapter 3 The Holy Sun. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Little girl, haven't you seen anything? You'll still be amazed in the future. Upon seeing this scene, Chen Dao couldn't help but curl his lips slightly, and his heart became even more determined to leave with a different Chen Duo. Even further progress can be made. Chen Dao swept around, and the other children around him were also a bit agitated. It seemed that they had not been harmed too deeply. As long as I'm fast enough, maybe I can still save them. Chen Dao calmed down and quietly glanced at Chen Duo. Chen Duo had now entered a cultivation state and was practicing the 10,000 poisons holy body, and the progress was rapid. If Chen Dao had no cheats, even if he taught him the techniques of the 10,000 poisons holy body hand in hand, he would definitely not learn as fast as Chen Duo. Chen Duo's talent is really beyond words. So everyone else should be similar, right? Chen Dao thought of what was said in a previous life plot that these last 49 children were the most talented after being trained and screened by the Medicine Immortal Society. Everyone who is released can basically become the heir of a sect. The greatest secret of the Medicine Immortal Society is the method of screening such geniuses, which is mastered by the Medicine Immortal Society. Perhaps Chen Dao's gaze flickered, perhaps he had the opportunity to explore this secret. But for now, we still need to continue to comprehend. The Medicine Immortal Society has put in a lot of effort to cultivate a Gu body saint child. While suppressing human nature, we also teach people to read and write, as well as to practice martial arts and practice breathing. There are still many techniques in Chen Dao's mind, and he estimates that besides those secret techniques, the Medicine Immortal Society has taught all the techniques to these experimental subjects. In other words, learning techniques is also an experiment and assessment. Those who pass will move on to the next level, while those who fail will naturally only die. Chen Dao continued to read the exercises in his mind. What I saw this time was a technique called Gu Mu refining method. Gu, like this thing, is also divided into offspring and mother. The offspring can split and produce freely, while the mother has only one and is responsible for controlling all the offspring. As long as you master the mother body, you have control over all the Gu. This is also a basic skill. Normal descendants of Miao villages will have their own Gu Mu, and only Chen Duo, who has been refined into weapons, did not refine this thing. Chen Dao began to comprehend. And when Chen Dao entered Wudao again, the originally departed guards brought their sect leader to the square. The guards brought their sect leader to Chen Dao and said, "Sect leader, the living child seems to have undergone some kind of mutation." "Oh. It's really a bit different," the leader nodded. Chen Dao's difference can be seen at a glance. Although he has just entered the state of enlightenment again, he actively increased his qi movement to cover up Chen Duo and maintained the previous vortex. When the perverted bishop of the Medicine Immortal Society came here, what he saw was a huge qilong scroll formed around Chen Dao. This is... How could he absorb such a dose of medicinal smoke? The sect leader was shocked. The medicine smoke was specially made by them, which can stimulate the primitive Gu power in these Gu children's bodies and deepen their toxicity. The more absorbed, the stronger the primitive Gu, and the stronger its own poison. After reaching a critical point, the primitive Gu in the Gu children's bodies will compete and fight against each other, spreading their poison outward and colliding with the Gu toxins in other Gu children's bodies. This is simulating the process of refining Gu. It's just that Gu has transformed from poisonous insects and snakes to humans. Simply put, the Gu Tong who absorbs the most medicinal smoke will be the ultimate winner. And what shocked the cult leader was that the resurrected child in front of him was actively absorbing it. This. The leader suppressed his excitement and took out a glove from his pocket. This glove is transparent, as thin as cicada wings, and looks like something that can be easily torn apart. The cult leader pulled hard when wearing it, but it did not break and appeared exceptionally resilient. This is a magical tool specifically designed for Gu poison, which can isolate the damage of Gu poison and also help control Gu. When he put on his gloves and reached out to touch Chen Dao's head, he examined his condition with his own breath. The cult leader was once again shocked and said, "That's right. That's right. This is the Gu body holy child we want. He's amazing, he became an early disciple." Got it. The guard on the side was momentarily stunned, his brain unable to turn. Ha ha ha. Heaven helps me too. The leader, however, ignored him and laughed freely on the side. He was wearing a white robe, and because the method of refining Gu was too sinister, his body became extremely ugly. His face, covered in a mask, was also twisted by Gu poison. If someone sees his true face, anyone who is a little timid may be scared to death. He usually wears a mask because of his appearance and also controls his emotions and behavior. But at this moment, he completely disregarded where he was, laughing wildly, even dancing with his hands and feet. That look, like a cannibal demon, celebrating just getting food. After laughing for a while, the leader waved his hand vigorously and shouted, "Gather all the members of the sect. I will personally announce this happy event to them. This will be the holy son of our Medicine Immortal Society. He will lead us to the true path of immortality. Obey me." The guard only realized at this moment, his breathing suddenly became rapid, and his eyes were hot as he stared at Chen Dao. The ingredients of the Medicine Immortal Society are complex. Some of them are local villagers who have been bewitched and believe that cultivating the holy child with a Gu body can lead to finding a way to immortality. The other part is crazy people like the cult leader. They all worship Gu and believe that Gu is the master of everything in the world. Refining Gu as a holy child is also to achieve this goal and prove their imagination. When the guards hurriedly went to notify other followers, the leader still stood in front of Chen Dao and hesitated. "Surprisingly, did you really succeed?" "Yeah, it's too sudden, isn't it? Just the final stage. You'll know when you see it." The congregation still didn't believe it, but seeing the guards so excited and crazy, and with the orders of the sect leader, they followed and came to the outside of the cave with a complex and uneasy mood. The congregation gathered and knelt outside the cave square, waiting. They can all see the Gu children on the square, but due to the strong Gu poison on the square, they cannot resist and can only observe from a distance. Ladies and gentlemen, today, we have received gifts from Gu's favor at zhaozhuyuan.com. On the first day, we welcomed our own Gu body holy child. I announce that he will become our Gu body holy child, leading us towards the great world of Gu. Seeing everyone gathered, the leader excitedly announced this matter again. Holy Son. The congregation stared with the same fiery eyes as the guards. They don't care whether they are holy or not, but what does the success of their experiment mean? They are clear about it. This is Chongsheng. Although the congregation did not speak, their expressions and rapid breathing proved everything. Upon seeing this, the cult leader exclaimed again, "We were able to succeed ahead of schedule precisely because Gu is protecting us. Gu rules the world, and he sees our piety. We still have 48 Gu Tong, as long as we understand how the Holy Son succeeded, we can replicate 48 more times. The main road is right in front of us. Gu Shen is above. Gu Shen is above." The congregation was completely stirred up by emotions, prostrating themselves and cheering, one by one beginning to fantasize about what they should do after achieving enlightenment and becoming immortals. And just as they cheered one by one, another strange movement occurred in Chen Dao's place. Chen Dao suddenly emitted a strange fragrance, like the fragrance of osmanthus, light and fresh. But the people around cannot smell it, because this fragrance is not prepared for them. Sha 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 sha, kaka kaka, as the fragrance spread, a soft rustling sound began to sound around the cave. When everyone in the Mad Medicine Immortal Society reacted, they were already surrounded by a bunch of poisonous insects. Chapter 4. 10,000 Poisons Come to Court. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The followers are all people living here, and have been learning Gu magic since childhood. Naturally, they know the terrifying and habitual nature of these poisonous insects. They remained motionless one by one, even though these poisonous insects crawled onto them, they still dared not move. What's going on? The leader was also stunned for a moment, not expecting such a thing to happen. However, he reacted quickly and saw his left hand shake, revealing a blue centipede from his sleeve. The centipede stood on his palm, lifted its head and half of its body, and its ferocious jaws popped out, roaring and demonstrating towards the poisonous insects. The leader's one is Gu Mu, the Gu King on this mountain. Gu Wang, this kind of thing, must be the most poisonous poison within 100 miles. Moreover, they have fought on a mountain and are invincible in every area. In general, if the Gu King takes action, even if there is a riot, the surrounding poison will be slightly obedient and retreat. But now there is none. Those poisons not only did not retreat, but also took a step forward, and some even came to the side of the congregation. Teach, Master. Don't move around, don't provoke hostility from these toxins. As soon as the panicked congregation moved, the leader hurriedly raised his hand and whispered, prohibiting them from moving again. But how can the believers who have already fallen into fear really remain stable? The congregation began to stir, which caught the attention of those poisons. These toxins began to gather towards them. I don't want to die. Finally, one of the congregation could no longer bear it and got up and ran towards the outside. Click it, click it. He crushed 2 hard-shelled toxins, splashing green blood, and the 2 people next to him were directly hit by blood bullets. Ah! The 2 of them let out a scream, and at the spot where the blood splattered, their skin quickly ulcerated, as if corroded by strong sulfuric acid. The flesh and blood disappeared directly, revealing the bones below. The 2 of them just let out a scream and then fell to the ground without a sound. Kaka kaka, the death of the first poison is like the first domino being pushed down. Directly trigger a chain reaction, the smell of fresh blood piercing those poisons, making them gradually go crazy. Quick, come up with a solution. Some obviously high-level members of the Medicine Immortal Society looked at their sect leader in terror. At this moment, only hope can be placed on the person with the highest strength on site. The leader's face was solemn. He also encountered a situation where both his own secret techniques and the drive of the Gu King were ineffective for the first time. Don't worry, you all come over. Although surprised and a little flustered, the leader remained calm on the surface. I saw him take out a brocade bag, open it and sprinkle it around, drawing a white circle, and then summon those high-level subordinates to come over. The members of the cult each showed their divine abilities, some jumped over, some released poison to block and then rushed over, and some cast secret spells. At this critical moment of life and death, they no longer hide their foolishness and used all their abilities to kill them. When they entered the white circle, the poison chasing them indeed stopped. Poisons surround the circle, but they never dare to step on it. The leader breathed a sigh of relief and then took out a dozen brocade sachets, saying, "Each of you take one and draw circles on the ground. Go over and save those believers, and there are some that can be saved." Yes. The high-level believers did not hesitate. They are an organization similar to Xie Jiao, and after joining the organization, the first ones to develop are definitely their own people. Many of the people being chased are their relatives, it's impossible not to save them. This indirectly reflects the strength of the Medicine Immortal Society. Although they are cruel, they only treat ordinary people and children. In terms of hard power, it can be said that they are very worrying. No wonder the company was able to easily deal with them when they called. With their strength, after poison and goo were cracked by modern technology, the rest were really not worth watching. Their movements are fast, after all, even if they are weak, they are people who have lived here for a long time. They have a set of ways to deal with these toxins, otherwise they would not be able to survive. They gathered inside the white circle, but these toxins did not return, and they could not leave. "Master, what should we do now?" "I'm trying to figure it out," the sect leader frowned and pondered. The current situation really exceeded his expectations, and he was also a bit puzzled. "Master, look at that Gu Tong. There has been a change on the saint's side." Just as the leader was at a loss, a member of the congregation suddenly pointed in the direction of Chen Dao and shouted loudly. Everyone heard the sound and looked around. At this moment, they realized that these poisons were only by their side from beginning to end, and had not even approached the Gu children on the open ground. Previously, it was, and now it is. After attacking the followers, those poisons arrived at a position 10 meters in front of the open space, constantly hovering there. It's not just strange, under normal circumstances, these toxins will gather and devour each other. But now they not only haven't devoured each other, they are peaceful with each other and even separated from each other, looking in the direction of Chen Dao in an orderly manner. With the poison, he even made a gesture of worship. Among them, snakes, centipedes and other venomous creatures that can stand upright are the most, and those who worship are called decent ones. Can't it be? The leader was so excited that he trembled all over when he saw this scene. The leader. The followers around him were startled by his behavior, thinking that their leader couldn't withstand the pressure and was possessed by evil. Oh, why didn't I expect that? This is the holy child of Gu body, a manifestation of Gu's will, and a sacred existence within Gu. He suddenly shouted out, dancing and laughing like a crazy prodigy. Since it is the most sacred existence among Gu, wouldn't it be reasonable for these poisons to come and worship? This is the arrival of 10,000 poisons. The spirits of the congregation were shaken. Originally, these poisons attacked them not because they angered them, but because they were protecting Chen Dao. 10,000 poisons come to court. This description is very appropriate. Countless poisons come to pay homage to their holy son. What an honor this is. It's truly a miracle. The congregation also became excited. Their holy son was so strange that he could receive the worship of poison. They went to the book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com, which means he could attract poison. Something that can attract these creatures is either highly toxic or a great tonic. That is to say, the congregation looked at Chen Dao with an undisguised greed in their eyes. They all wished to rush forward now, divide Chen Dao up completely, and eat his flesh raw. Ha ha ha. As long as the Holy Sun is here, we have an endless supply of poison. The leader was still excited and jumping around, as he spoke. Suddenly, he stepped out of the circle and came straight to the side of the worshippers. Then he reached out and grabbed a venomous snake. And during the process of his capture, the venomous snake did not even resist, not even move. This made the already greedy members, who were almost unable to resist, completely let go of their oppression and rushed forward one by one, crazily picking up those poisonous substances. They were completely insane, but the originally insane leader standing beside them suddenly stopped and looked coldly at these followers. How could he, who was alone in raising a great sect, be someone who was filled with joy and anger and went crazy when faced with difficulties? Making that expression was just to divert the attention of these greedy people. When he recruited them, he took advantage of the ignorance and greed of these followers. Now that the possibility of his promised longevity is right in front of him, how can these greedy guys resist it? Without diverting his attention, even he may not be able to stop these guys from eating Chen Dao. He is certainly not trying to protect Chen Dao. He is only doing this to temporarily preserve this voxel and facilitate his research on its mysteries. A saint has such an effect, so if there are 49 saints. Chapter 5. Yin Yang Gu Mu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Greed is one of the driving forces behind human progress. Because I want more, I am constantly accelerating forward. And in order to get what they want, people often go to great lengths. The leader of the Medicine Immortal Society is like this. He has no name, and everyone, including his trusted aide, only refers to him as the leader. The leader's methods are not sophisticated, but he knows how to arouse people's greed and desires. In the process of gathering these followers, he once promised things such as strength, wealth, status, and longevity. As an ordinary leader, after drawing the big cake, they will more or less achieve some goals in order to encourage employees to work harder. It will even truly fulfill the demands of some people, setting a good example by buying valuable assets. The same goes for the leader, but there are some differences. For those who want strength, he gives strength, but he will give a little stronger strength to those who have a grudge or dislike that person, making them compare with each other and causing greater greed and dissatisfaction. For those who want wealth, he will give money and tell them how to gamble more money, and the result is that this person will come back penniless. For those who want power, that's even simpler. They just need to follow the rules and be able to arouse their greed. He knows greed because he is the most greedy one among them. What he covets is the same thing as most believers. Immortality. And he wants more. He not only wants to be immortal, but also wants to turn himself into a kind of immortal Gu, and then rule the world, making Gu the master of the world. What a bunch of trash, it seems like I still need to clean it up. The leader's eyes sparkled with brilliance, observing these followers and contemplating the next steps for rectification. And just as he was on the edge, the congregation was frantically picking up toxins. Chen Dao has completed this enlightenment. You have learned the Gu Mu refining method, and felt it in your heart. By combining it with the 10,000 poisons holy body, and the 5 elements Gu technique, you have created the technique. Yin Yang Gu Mu. Yin Yang Gu Mu refers to 2 other martial arts that Chen Dao comprehends, extending from the 5 elements to Yin Yang. After enlightenment, the primitive Gu and medicinal Gu in Chen Dao's body began to riot, moving towards the position of the poison pill. After meeting, these Gu insects began to devour each other, gradually forming a thumb-sized caterpillar. This caterpillar has 5 colored patterns on its body and orange-yellow horns on its head. After its birth, it has been entrenched around the poison pill and under the control of Chen Dao. Yang Gu Mu. This is the name of the caterpillar. As the creator of the martial arts, Chen Dao naturally knows the ability and control methods of this thing. The Yin Yang Gu Mu is different from other Zi Mu Gu. Zi Mu Gu is a female Gu in hand, and Zi Gu plays casually. But the Yin Yang Gu Mu is different. There are 2 Yin Yang Gu Mu, one Yang Gu Mu is inside the user's body, and the other Yin Gu Mu is outside the user's body. Yang Gu Mu lies between the existence and non-existence, and is a normal manifestation of Gu's definition. It can connect with Yin Gu Mu and also forcibly control other Gu Mu. Yin Gu Mu is a physical entity that possesses all the abilities of a normal Gu Mu and can be easily replaced, whichever is stronger. After completing the cultivation, Ong Gu Mu automatically summoned the poisonous creatures in the surrounding mountains and forests, selecting the Yin Gu Mu that belonged to Chen Dao. This is the reason for the poison riots in the surrounding mountains and forests. The attraction of Yang Gu Mother to them is no less than that of peerless beauties to LSP. Chen Dao can understand what exactly happened with just a slight perception. After understanding it, I suddenly felt regretful. Why didn't we take these people away? Unfortunately, since he had already missed it, Chen Dao didn't pay much attention. The most important thing now is that he needs to select a Yin Gu Mother, and it must also be secretly selected, so that the sect leader and those followers cannot know. Chen Dao communicated with Yang Gu Mu and asked if there were any suitable toxins. Yang Gu Mu gave a vague answer, offering 3 directions. One is the centipede in the sleeve of the leader of the Medicine Immortal Society, one is a venomous snake in the corner that has never come up, another inconspicuous sight is a golden cicada on a stone wall. The centipede naturally goes without saying. That was the original Gu King in this area, a highly poisonous monster. However, it already belongs to the leader of the Medicine Immortal Society. Even if Chen Dao tries to cheat again, he doesn't have absolute confidence in instigating this centipede to rebel. And the snake in the corner is a venomous creature with great potential. Just by looking at the bright colors and the crimson snake venom, you can tell that it is also a first-class highly poisonous thing. But the most rare thing is intelligence. Its intelligence is not small, it can seek good fortune and avoid misfortune, hide in a corner and observe its changes, which proves that it is a poison that can help Chen Dao execute plans. But the problem is also significant. Chen Dao has confidence in being able to control it, but the problem is that it's too fancy. What Chen Dao needs now is to pretend to be foolish, pretending to be a good prop that fits the path of goo and poison, lacks the ability to think for oneself, but can instinctively cultivate. So he wouldn't choose colors that are bright and visible at a glance. Finally, only the seemingly ordinary golden cicada remained. This cicada is also a poisonous creature with weak toxicity, but it has an ability that even centipedes and scorpions cannot match. Hard. This golden cicada is very hard. Hard enough to shoot it with a small caliber bullet. As long as you don't shoot it within 10 meters, you can never kill it. And although this golden cicada is golden, it is not eye-catching because it is only half the size of an ordinary cicada. It is not easy to be discovered and extremely hard, just right for Chen Dao's current situation. Chen Dao ordered Yang Gu Mu to call out the golden cicada. After receiving the call, the golden cicada leaped its wings and flew high, bouncing out in an instant at a speed that seemed to disappear. In just a few seconds, the golden cicada arrived behind Chen Dao and made contact with Yang Gu's mother. Chen Dao used his martial arts to lure his own primitive goo and let the golden cicada eat it. In fact, raising goo is just like taming beasts, both of which are understood thoroughly. Find the corresponding biological habits of the book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com and domesticate and cultivate them. The golden cicada eats Chen Dao's primitive goo, which is equivalent to absorbing Chen Dao's qi. After absorbing qi, the golden cicada also became accustomed to the qi of Chen Dao. This is normal domestication. The ordinary martial arts have basically come to an end here. Next, just drive goo to do something like a trade, and then give it some energy to eat. But Chen Dao's cultivation method is different. His cultivation method is to transform the opponent into a goo mother that belongs exclusively to Chen Dao, just like the Yang Gu mother in his body. In the technique of Yin Yang Gu Mu, there is a specialized method for assimilating goo. It's like exchanging bone marrow and blood. Inject one's own qi into the body of goo, walk all the way inside goo, replace goo from the inside out, and finally make goo become an incarnation-like existence. This also includes some sorcerer techniques that can achieve a level of mental control similar to in the interior. After sucking on the qi fed by Chen Dao, the cicada began to transform. The normal way to raise goo is to tame animals and control bacteria, which is far from reaching the level of cultivating immortals. By imprinting a mark in the opponent's mind, one can control them. Raising goo takes time. It takes time to blend in with goo and get goo used to you. But Chen Dao doesn't have time now. So he plans to use a faster method, which is to increase the dosage. He began to feed more primitive goo and qi to the golden cicada, and even distributed some of the goo poison from the poison pill to the golden cicada. As the dose increases, the connection between the two also deepens and gradually reaches the point of transformation. Finally, when there was very little remaining primitive goo in Chen Dao's body, the golden cicada was full. Chapter 6. Supply to Taiwan, Company in Action. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After finishing her meal, the golden cicada completely calmed down and nestled in a corner of Chen Dao's clothes, becoming the Yin Gu mother exclusively belonging to Chen Dao. It's done. Chen Dao breathed a sigh of relief. After he selected the Yin Gu mother, the gathered poisonous creatures were very sad, as if they had been abandoned by the scumbag. They began to riot, but when they lost their attraction, they instead began to fear the centipede in the hands of the cult leader, as well as the newly born golden cicada Gu Mu. In addition, the surrounding followers have already taken away many people and toxins, leaving the remaining toxins disinterested in fighting and gradually retreating. As the toxins retreated, Chen Dao released some primitive goo and quietly approached the venomous snake on the other side. Since I have seen it, there is no reason not to do it. When the primitive goo secretly released by Chen Dao was absorbed by the venomous snake, all the surrounding toxins had already retreated. Poisonous tongue also silently left after spitting out a message to Chen Dao. A little primitive goo is not enough to transform that venomous snake, but it can leave a mark and be tamed later. And it will also record the chi of Chen Dao, and if it wants to join in the future, it can also come to find Chen Dao. Of course, even if it joins Chen Dao now, Chen Dao dare not accept it. Because Chen Dao doesn't have as much energy to nourish it. Hurry up, stop meddling in those toxins and check that our Gu Tong is not injured. The sect leader saw that most of the poison had retreated, and immediately ordered the members who were still trying to seize the poison to put down the things and check the situation of the Gu children. The congregation heard the voice of the leader and stopped to look at him. And as they looked around, everyone trembled all over, then honestly put down the poison they had collected and began to examine the situation of the Gu children. Why is this happening? Because they saw a centipede. Although just now, the Gu mother of the sect leader failed to deter those poisons. But that was due to the attraction of the Holy Sun and the madness of the poisonous creatures. Now that the poison is gone, these people combined are definitely not opponents of this Gu Mu. So they can only obediently listen. After intimidating these greedy people, the sect leader found an altar and placed it at the entrance of the cave, asking everyone to clean the altar and then move the Chen Dao onto the crown prince. The leader pointed at Chen Dao and said, "I will place the Holy Sun here. You can sincerely worship him every day, and those who have made contributions can also come near and smell the immortal chi of the Holy Sun. Greed deprives people of wisdom, let alone those who are already somewhat ignorant. People who want money, power cannot escape the temptation of immortality. Using longevity to promote and deceive people is a common saying in this land, and it belongs to traditional artistic skills. Generation after generation of river and lake fraudsters use their longevity to deceive people's money. Time has passed and those fraudsters have all died, but those who are willing to be deceived and believe have been passed down from generation to generation. I have to say, this can be considered an alternative joke. The congregation saw the worship of the poison towards Chen Dao, and naturally regarded Chen Dao as a miraculous elixir. Although it's not possible to eat him directly, being able to take a sniff may also prolong life. This is a great temptation for those who think they have already mastered the power and started pursuing longevity when entering and leaving the threshold of outsiders. It is precisely because of this decision that the once floating hearts have once again stabilized, and the cult leader still holds absolute authority. However, the leader is not a philanthropist, and temporarily placing this only finished product here is just a helpless move. He also wants to use Chen Dao for research and experimentation. Chen Dao is just a successful case, but if he can replicate this successful case, he will have 49 Gu body holy children. What a great scene that would be! Thinking about it would make one tremble all over and make one climax. The leader is an action-oriented person, and when he thinks of him, he immediately goes ahead and arranges his confidants to stay here, and then begins to prepare for research. At the moment when the leader was tinkering, Chen Dao remained motionless, as if he really had no consciousness. He is currently intensifying his cultivation. Qi does not exist overnight, but requires accumulation and expansion over time. Chen Dao currently has no other martial arts to comprehend and can only continue to cultivate the 10,000 poison holy body. At the same time, South China region, hidden fortress. Is this the guy with a stormy fate? He looks very beautiful. Liao Zhong, who was of all sizes, stood in the observation room, looking through the glass at the female surgeon inside. This female surgeon was just brought to the bunker by them, and it was precisely to take her away that several of them were caught and inexplicably fell ill. Just as Liao Zhong was having trouble with Hua Hua mouth, his secretary beside him rolled her eyes and said, "You're okay with Hua Hua mouth. I've already taken note of it. Please wait for the announcement then. Also, I have arranged for the doctor and we will all undergo examinations afterwards, check it out. It should be okay after all this distance, right? Unfortunately, we haven't determined the exact scope yet." Liao Zhong's subordinate, the man in charge of the research in the bunker, spread his hand and said that the research has not been completed yet. What? Liao Zhong was shocked and felt like he had been tricked by his subordinates. No, I need to go check it quickly. Liao Zhong said and quickly ran to check. In no time, after the inspection report came out, Liao Zhong's roar came from the office again. This is impossible. There must have been an error in the examination. Why are they all suffering from certain types of cancer? Why is mine a male genital disease? Ah! Liao Zhong held his head and shouted loudly. This scarred and ferocious-looking strong man is actually a carefree optimist. Liao Zhong's shouting and screaming caused rare laughter to appear in the underground office. A bunker is a research institution established anywhere, specifically accommodating people or objects that are not suitable for the present. And Liao Zhong is the person in charge here. Zhaoshuyuan.com. He has been living in the bunker for a long time, while handling alien incidents in both the bunker and the southern region. Boss, the file from above is top secret. While Liao Zhong was having fun with his subordinates, another subordinate came to Liao Zhong with a top-secret document printed on it and personally handed it over to him. Oh! Liao Zhong's smile stopped, and everyone around him quickly restrained and stood up one by one to bid farewell. The person in charge of the office equipment specifically turned off the camera on top of Liao Zhong's head, and when he was placed to watch, this document was captured by the camera. Liao Zhong has a good relationship with his subordinates. If he understands his subordinates, they will naturally understand him. Usually, it's okay to talk and laugh, fight and make noise, but once it comes to work, Liao Zhong becomes very serious and serious. Liao Zhong opened the file and carefully read it. There was only the sound of two people breathing in the office, as well as the sound of Liao Zhong flipping through documents. Well, it's a very tricky thing, and most importantly, what they're studying is very dangerous. After reading the document, Liao Zhong sat in his chair and lit a cigarette. Although he was smoking, he frowned tightly, obviously it was a difficult thing for him to do. Yes, according to the instructions above, you are fully responsible for this matter, Liao. My subordinate picked up a tablet, and there was a sound coming from the tablet. The owner of this sound was Zhao Fangxiu, the chairman of Enlightenment Company. Upon hearing Zhao Fangxiu's words, Liao Zhong's eyes became even more mesmerized. Zhao Fangxiu was very calm, obviously his goal this time made this kind old man also very angry. The company will give you the green light, and if anything happens, the company will take responsibility, but there is only one requirement. Kill them all. Chapter 7. The Wild Hope of 49 Gu Body Holy Children. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Understood. Liao Zhong finished smoking and replied calmly. Just like Zhao Fangxiu's calmness, both of these big shots were very angry, and they were both very angry about this matter. Well, I can rest assured of your work and wait for your news. Okay. Zhao Fangxiu hung up the phone, and the subordinate holding the tablet bowed before cautiously exiting the office. After he left, Liao Zhong stood up and walked to the French window of the office. From here, you can see the full view of the interior of the bunker, making it convenient to monitor everything. This is not a restriction on personal freedom, but a necessary precautionary measure. It may seem oppressive, but in fact, under the management of Liao Zhong, this place has quite a human touch. He finished smoking his cigarette and casually threw it to the ground, trampling on the sparks. Then pick up the files and burn them one by one. When he burned to the last one, he skimmed over the description above and a photo with a child. Those children were wearing simple gray clothes, but their expressions were dull, as if they couldn't think. But the person standing next to them placed something that looked like a slug on their body. If Chen Dao sees this scene, he must call me familiar. Because this is one of the cultivation methods of the Medicine Immortal Society. Finally, Liao Zhong couldn't help but see this thing again. MD. Liao Zhong angrily cursed and threw the document into the fire, then stomped on it with force. After the document was completely turned into fly ash, he angrily left the office. Gather me without any tasks, and gather people who are close by tomorrow noon. I want to kill those guys. In the afternoon. After all the villagers and members of the church finished paying their respects to their holy son, the leader immediately called his confidant and brought Chen Dao back to the laboratory behind him. The members of the Medicine Immortal Society may have weak combat effectiveness, but their organization is very modern. Because this leader, in a sense, is really a talent. He knows a lot about things that have not yet been popularized in inland areas. After all, it was only 2008. Due to internal and external troubles, many things have not been fixed yet. He has mastered several exotic martial arts and foreign medical technology, and being able to accomplish such a thing can only be described by his talent. It took the whole morning for the leader to gather all the necessary items. Then he impatiently brought Chen Dao to his rudimentary laboratory. It was in this place that he and his subordinates developed a screening method for Gu Tong, and developed that terrifying research plan. Now, he wants to bring those despicable things back to Chen Dao. See if we can replicate the previous success. It is not an exaggeration to say that if he really sees some hope, then what will happen to the remaining 49 children? It goes without saying. So, Chen Dao cannot make him successful. At this moment, Chen Dao opened his eyes calm and without any waves. He looked no different from other Gu Tong, but in reality, he was looking at this other person. The leader is not alone in conducting research, he has an entire research team. Otherwise, it would be impossible to find people to screen children everywhere, which is a complex and difficult task. The leader put on white gloves, although he didn't know if he had disinfected them, at least he looked very well done. Then he picked up a needle and walked over to Chen Dao, wanting to draw some blood first to study. He didn't pay much attention when he saw Chen Dao open his eyes. Gu Tong just lacks the ability to think independently, it is not something that cannot be moved or seen. What's the use of raising them like that? Gu Tong is a great weapon, and the weapon naturally needs to be fought. If you don't listen or watch the battle, it will be like a waste. Can't we cultivate a blind person and then attack indiscriminately in a fight? According to our imagination, the Gu body holy child should have strong toxicity, but we don't know if it will corrode the equipment, said one of the researchers. Let's give it a try first. The leader nodded and then inserted the needle into Chen Dao's skin. Chen Dao looked at him like this. Before he penetrated, he had already released the Gu poison from the poison pill, allowing it to fill his own blood. Although he is not studying medicine, he has watched some popular science videos to some extent. Chen Dao knew that in order to study cells, they need to remain active after leaving the mother cell. Even the cult leader and his clumsy doctors need this kind of replication research. Although Chen Dao doesn't know how to inactivate or prevent his cells and blood from being used by them, he knows how to violently destroy them and make the other party know how to retreat. Master. I see it, hurry up and destroy it. Yes. The leader handed the needle in his hand to his assistant, and then took 2 steps back to maintain a distance for observation. Just now, after he withdrew the blood from Chen Dao's body, something terrifying happened. Chen Dao's body emitted dark green blood, which did not immediately corrode the aluminum needle. However, at the moment it flowed into the needle, it dissolved the plastic needle. Yes, its dissolution, far exceeding corrosion. At the moment of touching this blood, the molecular structure of the plastic was like a proton projectile accelerated by a collider, shattering completely and disappearing without a trace. The blood dripped onto the ground, making a rustling sound. Even more miraculously, the spot that flowed on Chen Dao's arm not only did not corrode him, but was quickly absorbed back by his skin. This is the true Gu poison, how powerful it is. After a brief surprise, the leader became excited and crazy again. He ordered his subordinates to take the remaining blood from the needle and personally sit in front of the microscope to prepare for observation. What he didn't notice was that the researcher who had just received the needle had inexplicably stained his clothes with a trace of blood. Chen Dao watched as the person left, his eyes flashing with a gleam of light. Gu can not only control animals, but also be used to control humans. After all, humans are also animals. He just used Gu Du and placed a protective film under his skin. As long as one's own blood passes through, the protective film will destroy the cells in the blood, turning them into pure toxic water. And these poisonous water stains on him, naturally being recovered by the poison pills in his body. Not only that, he also carried private goods in his blood. These private goods, Yu reading www.yuyukeangshu.net, are transformed into online memes one by one. It is a small prop that Chen Dao temporarily imitated the iron wire worm and released. If successful, it can influence a person and gradually make them useful to oneself. Of course, Gu Du can be blocked by defensive techniques and protective tools. Even if one's own cultivation is high enough, they can resist the invasion of Gu and poison. However, it seems that the people of the Medicine Immortal Society do not have those things, and they cannot even discover them themselves. They have already been possessed by Gu. The gap between Yi Luzi and those who learn systematically is really huge. Chen Dao wanted to stop and continue practicing with his eyes closed. He believed that after this, the sect leader and other people should not draw his blood again. But there is also a small question: will they cut their own meat? Of course, even if you cut the meat, Chen Dao is not afraid. Blood drawing and meat cutting both have the same effect in the end, and even meat cutting can directly release toxicity. If Chen Dao drops a piece of meat, the other party will have to die, at least one person. In fact, Chen Dao still carries the kindness of modern people. Whenever a ruthless person is replaced, it's not just a deterrent just now, but a direct way to kill someone by drawing blood. On the other side, the leader quickly received the processed blood and placed it under a microscope to start studying Chen Dao's blood. Unfortunately, after Chen Dao took action, he was destined to achieve nothing. But he didn't give up, instead he became even more excited. Although there hasn't been any progress yet, just looking at the uniqueness of Chen Dao, the leader is eager to try and becomes even more excited. He still has 48 pheromones. As long as he keeps studying, he doesn't believe there will be no progress. As soon as I thought about having 49 Gu body holy children in the future, the sect leader. He. Chapter 8. Chen Duo's Achievements. Master of the Medicine Immortal Society. I am invincible. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Chen Dao was taken to conduct the experiment, the Gu children were still here on the original cave square, but the person in charge of guarding had already left. They are all at the entrance of the cave now, competing to lick the mat that Chen Dao has been sitting on first. Don't feel nauseous. Ignorance can indeed make people do such unimaginable things. Have you heard that Mr. Lu Sun once bluntly mentioned the cannibalism incident? Chen Duo quietly opened her eyes. This is the first time this 10-year-old girl has brought her own thoughts to see this place. She scrutinized the place with a curious expression in her eyes. The big eyes kept blinking, like twinkling stars, constantly looking around. Chen Duo is curious about everything. This is a special rebound that only occurs after prolonged suppression. Chen Duo's mouth opened, but she quickly realized and tightly pursed her lips. Fear flashed in her eyes, but more of it was an unknown joy. This should not have been her emotions, but it actually appeared. Her emotions and thoughts were not completely erased, she was just suppressed and locked in. And Chen Dao's previous action was to open the chain for her and release the key. Chen Duo is full of curiosity about everything. Just now, she said that because of this curiosity, she couldn't help but want to ask herself, what's going on? But she followed Chen Dao's advice and continued to pretend to be the same as before, perhaps not to be called pretending, because it was considered her true appearance. She also understands the power of those adults. She has experienced those things. The terrifying training of those adults has suppressed her thoughts, almost losing the ability to think independently, only following other people's instructions and becoming a living puppet. There were once people who were disobedient, and even one or two who knew how to resist, but their results were all without exception, and they all silently disappeared. Originally, Chen Duo and his team thought that those who were disobedient were just taken away and sent to other places. But later on, it wasn't until a disobedient person was beaten to death in front of them. They finally understood what the fate of those people was. Only then did I understand what death means. Those of them who have not had contact with the outside world may not know what resistance is, but the instincts of living beings will tell them what fear is. Chen Duo is like this. She was deeply shocked. Because of fear, she became more obedient and worked harder to practice according to the teachings of the congregation. This can also be considered as the reason why she became the holy child of Gu body and the last person to survive. Okay. Unique. Chen Duo muttered to herself in her heart, and then according to Chen Dao's words, she released the Gu poison from the poison pill again and filled her whole body, triggering a vision of great physical fitness. This kind of anomaly is essentially due to the fact that after the completion of the 10,000 poisons holy body, the body, due to hunger, absorbs a large amount of energy from heaven and earth, resulting in the convergence of energy. It's the same as the Qi dragon roll that Chen Dao gathered before. Chen Dao relied on the energy he absorbed to accomplish everything that followed. What is this? Being with the villagers, the guard who was dividing the seat cushion suddenly felt the abnormal flow of qi. However, his talent is average, and Chen Duo's Ju qi does not absorb medicinal smoke, so there is no obvious visual change. So it wasn't until Chen Duo was about to finish his qi gathering that he could truly notice. After realizing something was wrong, he decisively reported it to the sect leader. The last report had already benefited him, and the leader rewarded him with some things. After realizing something was wrong for the second time, he didn't hesitate and ran towards the master's laboratory with his head down. Dang 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 dang. In no time, the guard followed the leader briskly towards this side. Master, it's this girl. The guard pointed at Chen Duo. Because the illusion had already disappeared, the cult leader was unable to distinguish it without a confident inspection. Fortunately, the guardian was clever and recorded the center of the previously blurred feeling, finding Chen Duo. The leader approached to check, and as soon as he touched Chen Duo's arm, he couldn't help but tremble. That's right, that's right. Another one, ha ha ha. The leader started dancing. The guards around them grinned excitedly upon hearing this. Well done. Reward, there must be a big reward. The leader was very happy. He even began to doubt whether this foolish person in front of him was a rare and turbulent fate. Otherwise, how could he have seen a holy child with a Gu body? Thank you, master. The guard doesn't have that much thought. He knows that the teacher will reward him, so he is naturally a fool who is happy. Go call someone and bring her to the laboratory as well. Yes. The leader looked at Chen Duo and his heart gradually surged. He can hear his heartbeat, its excitement, it's the sound of him marching towards invincibility. The Gu body holy child can be considered the ultimate realm of Gu poison. A Gu body holy child can easily defeat an entire army and even turn a city into a dead zone. What if there are two Gu body saints? I dare not think. The sect leader had no idea how powerful he was holding two Gu body holy children. He is even starting to imagine the future now. Two Gu body holy children, one in the bright and the other in the dark. In this way, even the company has to be wary of themselves when looking for a book garden. www.zhaozuiyuan.com. This is really, really wonderful. The leader smiled, a bit silly. He only has 2 words in his heart now. Invincibility. Yes, he has started to claim to be invincible. Soon, Chen Duo also enjoyed Chen Dao's treatment and was carried to the laboratory. She opened her eyes and felt a little nervous and scared as those people lifted her up. But when she entered the laboratory and saw Chen Dao sitting there with her eyes open, she felt relieved instead. When Chen Dao saw Chen Duo being carried in, he immediately understood that this was Chen Duo's successful cultivation. He truly stands out among 49 children. Strange people are just a few in this world. Every qualified individual who becomes an outsider is a genius among thousands. And Chen Duo, who can compete to become the holy child of Gu body, has an absolute talent. Perhaps not as good as those demons like Zhong Chulan and Wang Yi, but they must also be top-notch geniuses in the alien world. Her completion of the cultivation of the 10,000 poisons holy body is almost a matter of certainty, the only difference lies in time. Chen Dao never expected her to be so fast anyway. Put her there, prepare for the experiment. Yes. Chen Duo was placed next to Chen Dao. As the researchers turned around to prepare the equipment, Chen Dao's messenger Gu had quietly climbed onto Chen Duo and told him the method of destroying the cells he had just done. Chen Duo's heart tightened. Chen Dao explained the reason to her, which greatly increased her pressure. She quickly began to replicate Chen Dao's previous behavior. Just as she established the cell destruction layer, Chen Dao began to contemplate ways to escape. Chapter 9. Liao Zhong's action. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Liao, is this really feasible? Of course. Liao Zhong couldn't help but burst out laughing as he looked at his friend. Old Meng, you are already the father of 2 children. Don't always look like this. Old Meng let out a bitter smile, which was the expression on his face as a doormat. He looked out the window. They are currently in the bustling city area, which is the busiest neighborhood in this area. Liao Zhong brought them to have coffee to introduce him to his work. This coffee, in 2008 now, can be considered a waste. Lao Meng looked at the pedestrians, who were separated by a glass, but felt like they were separated by a world. That is a sense of alienation from the world that belongs exclusively to outsiders. Lao Meng sighed and said, this is not a cowardly appearance. As people like us, we are always different from ordinary people. Even if we blend in, there will always be a slight discomfort. Liao Zhong looked at his old friend. Unlike myself, who joined the company in the first place and mixed positions, it's different. Old Meng's life was once impoverished and destitute. If it weren't for a good wife, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to hold on anymore. The reason why I am willing to join the company now is still because I need to earn money from milk powder. Oh, why keep saying these discouraging words? The days after will be easier. Liao Zhong patted Old Meng's shoulder and pulled him up. Let's go, we need to prepare quickly now. Oh wait, the coffee hasn't finished yet. From the situation in the original plot, it can be inferred that it took less than 3 or 4 months from the company discovering the Medicine Immortal Society to its destruction. Don't think it's exaggerated, and don't underestimate the strength of the company. At most, the search for the Medicine Immortal Association base was somewhat hindered at the beginning. But once we catch any clues, the terror of the regular army will be revealed. Adding up this time, it will definitely not exceed 6 months. So, in fact, based on time, Liao Zhong and his team should not have received the news so quickly, at least not now. But it's still a cliché, under the influence of the butterfly's flapping wings, everything is greatly advanced. There was a short time difference between Chen Dao being revered as the Holy Sun and receiving rewards at the company headquarters. It's like a day and a half. During the entire time difference, the members of the Medicine Immortal Society, excited by obtaining the Holy Sun, were frantically moving around the base. The photos that reached Liao Zhong's hands were captured by a passing photography enthusiast during this brief time difference. In fact, this also indirectly reflects what kind of action those guys can unleash under the temptation of so-called longevity. That powerful action became the trigger for their exposure. One day later, Liao Zhong brought Old Meng to the secret castle. As he walked, he handed a document to Lao Meng and said, "The other party is a Xia cult organization that uses methods such as longevity to incite and commit many crimes. The order from above is to eliminate it. Take a look." Well, that's true. There is still a bit of Miao village inheritance, but according to this report, it should be a half-hearted person who has gone astray. Lao Meng helped his glasses and flipped through 2 pages before coming to a conclusion. He asked, "Do you need to work hard to persuade others? Isn't this playing goo and poison? We don't have anyone to deal with that thing on our end. It's difficult to find Miao Village and other factions. The only one I can find in the short term now is you. I am a helpless choice." Upon hearing this, Lao Meng couldn't help but laugh. His weak appearance made him quite amiable when he smiled. "Ah, you can't say that, you're really amazing." Liao Zhong stopped Old Meng's shoulder and started laughing. When they entered the bunker, Liao Zhong's secretary quickly arrived and reported the current preparations to him. "All the suitable people here have gathered and the necessary supplies are ready to depart at any time." "Well, it's not too late. Let's go explore that place first." "Yes," the secretary nodded and then took the report to arrange manpower. "Old Meng, are you interested in joining me as a pioneer?" Liao Zhong looked at Lao Meng, who noticed a murderous intent rising from Liao Zhong's body. Of course not to him, but to the photo in Liao Zhong's own hand, or rather, to those who committed crimes in that photo. So Lao Meng did not refuse and bowed his hand, saying, "May we go together?" "What are you saying? How could those guys find out about us?" The leader was shocked. He is now completely confused. He just took a nap and then came back to try collecting blood again. Why did the weather suddenly change? This is only 1 or 2 days. While acting quickly on Liao Zhong's side, the leader of the Medicine Immortal Society did not actually make any moves. These days, he just strengthened his rule as usual, and then spent the whole day in the laboratory, trying to extract the blood of Chen Dao and Chen Duo. This is also the reason why he is confused. He didn't pay too much attention to those followers, so he didn't know what they had done. It wasn't until the incident broke out that he realized the so-called concealment. These guys are not successful enough, they have more than enough failures. The sect leader was restless. The Gu Body Holy Child has been successful, but they haven't had time yet. Find the Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com to teach these 2 Gu Body Holy Children how to learn things. It's like installing a computer. He just installed the main body of the machine, but hasn't installed the system yet. A machine without a system cannot run at all. Just having that poisonous body is almost equivalent to invincibility. But it is necessary to be able to master enough Gu techniques and martial arts in order for the Gu Body Holy Child to exert its due combat power. The current Gu Body Holy Child can only be used as a group attack weapon, placed at one point, waiting for others to deliver it to their doorstep. This is also easy to be broken by people. Once found, it cannot be used at all. If there are really 49 Gu Body Holy Children, then he is indeed invincible. But there are only 2, to be honest, compared to the company, he is really nothing. The invincibility mentioned earlier was just the cult leader's own lust. Now he's panicking, but he can't panic on the surface. Quickly, take them to the study, bring all the techniques in Gu, and have all the instructors come too. We need to quickly pass on the merits to the Holy Son and the Holy Child. Yes. My subordinate was ordered to run away, and the sect leader was pacing in the laboratory. However, he still felt uneasy and followed him out. And just after he left, Chen Dao opened his eyes. At this moment, it's Chen Dao's turn to get excited. It's really unexpected. Although I'm not sure why the company informed me in advance, since I'm here, I can't do nothing. Chen Dao's eyes flickered. Not long after, the door of the laboratory was pushed open again. The person who can come back is not the leader, nor the person the leader summoned, but the researcher who took the syringe for the leader before. Chapter 10. Are you strange? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The researcher dressed in white walked into the laboratory, his face as usual, but if you look closely, you will find something wrong with him. His eyes were a bit dull, obviously under the control of Chen Dao's goo. Mine, it's all mine, he murmured to himself with his head down. Chen Dao chose a more stable control method, using the subtle influence of primitive goo to guide the researcher's thoughts, gradually turning this poor researcher into a puppet for power. He is now as if trapped in the inner world, completely unaware of what he has done in reality. Now he is like that. When Chen Dao manipulated him, he had no idea what was going on. Go ahead, give the company people some information and guide them to find this place. Chen Dao gave him an order through goo, asking him to go out and report to the company. In his illusion, he is domineeringly giving instructions to the company to follow his commands. It has to be said that this kind of illusion, which resembles the interior scenery, really makes people quite sink. The researcher left, along with Chen Dao's Yin Gu Mu Jin Chan. Chen Duo looked at everything, her beautiful eyes filled with curiosity. She had just been observing in the dark, and she also heard the conversation between the leader and others. She saw the researcher come in and then go out in silence. But she didn't understand why. In her little head, there were only 3 words, why, but she couldn't figure out why it was like this. With her shallow knowledge and just regained some independent thinking ability, being able to make the 3 words, why, jump out of her mind is already remarkable. Chen Dao is very pleased with this. When Chen Duo observed him, he was also constantly paying attention to Chen Duo. Chen Duo is still a child now, unlike the 17-year-old girl in the original plot, she is completely filled with joy and anger. The doubts just now were already written all over her face, even the slowest person could see that she was asking, why? Don't worry, we can leave here soon, Chen Dao whispered, reaching out and gently patting the back of Chen Duo's hand. But it was this gentle sentence, a gentle pat, that made Chen Duo tremble all over. Yes, it literally means shaking up. It's not fear, it's excitement, it's joy. She didn't know what leaving meant, but she knew that Chen Dao was talking to her. Me, you. Chen Duo opened her mouth. But it's different from a year ago. She hasn't spoken for too long, and suddenly opened her mouth. Not only did she not know what to say, but she didn't even know how to speak. Chen Dao smiled dumbfounded and said, don't worry, we can keep chatting until we leave here. Li, Kai. What does it mean? Chen Duo hesitated for a while before finally stumbling through what she wanted to say. We will no longer stay here. We will move to a different place, and those who once hurt us will no longer force us to do those terrible things. Chen Dao spoke lightly, but to Chen Duo, it was so deafening. Leaving, does that mean so? Is that okay? Can we leave here? Chen Duo's eyes flickered with light, she was unsure, but what Chen Dao said, she believed it. By the way, I haven't told you my name. My name is Chen Dao, what's your name? Name, no, Chen Duo hesitated for a moment and shook her head. No, then. Just call Chen Duo, I have the same surname, so we are family. Chen Dao turned his head to look at Chen Duo, showing a bright smile. At this moment, Chen Duo froze once again. She kept her mouth open and couldn't speak for a long time. Name, I also have it, Chen Duo. When Chen Duo regained her senses, her small face had already turned red with excitement. She spoke the most resolute and powerful words in the lightest and gentlest voice. Well, my name is Chen Duo. Step by step, adjust your breathing well, don't reveal your true feelings. Chen Dao heard the voice at the first time and instructed and helped Chen Duo adjust. The two of them closed their eyes again and took a cultivation posture. One of their instincts is that Gu children will only practice according to orders until they receive new instructions. The leader returned with the people and commanded his confidants to bring Chen Dao and Chen Duo to the study. After the leader left, the remaining confidants began to tidy up this laboratory. The main focus of teaching is to prepare two things. The first thing is naturally the situation where the base has not been exposed. He will lead the two holy children with good knowledge to create some noise in other places, attract the attention of the company, and protect the base. The second type is when the base is found by the enemy. If this place is discovered by the company, he will take his confidant and most importantly, escape first. Before escaping, he would ask the two Gushan holy children who had learned well to give the company a big gift. That's right, that's why, even though he decided to escape, he still wanted the two Gu body holy children to learn knowledge. No matter whether he runs or not, he will do this big thing that has made a name for himself. In the study room, the sect leader and four other middle-aged men dressed strangely stood in front of Chen Dao and the others, each holding a book in their hands, with many books and bamboo slips behind them. Books and bamboo slips look old, so they should be important ancient books and rare editions. Chen Dao and Chen Duo were asked to sit on chairs, and then the leader came first, ordering them to learn what they were teaching. The sect leader is skilled in refining Gu, and he teaches all the Gu techniques in the Medicine Immortal Society. The books he showed Chen Dao and Chen Duo were also related to Gu Shu, but most of them were already taught before, with only a few being things that Chen Dao did not remember. Ding, you have read The Art of Gu Body, and by analogy, your understanding of the 10,000 poisons holy body has deepened. You have read The Art of Emotional Gu, and found the book Garden www.zhaosuiyuan.com to learn by analogy. You have read Golden Cicada Gu, Witch Gu, Ghost Gu, Curse Gu, and so on, by analogy. You tried to combine all kinds of witchcraft, get rid of its dross and take its essence, and you understood the skill. Poisonous way. Chen Dao, who was forced to read, stared at him as he lowered his head. This so-called Gu Dao is actually the culmination of all Gu techniques. Transform its complex, tedious, disgusting and cruel cultivation methods into simple Gu techniques that use primitive Gu as a medium for performance. Although it is simplified, its power has not decreased. On the contrary, after removing those side effects, these Gu techniques not only did not weaken, but also became stronger. After Chen Dao comprehended, he quietly let the messenger Gu teach Chen Duo. The sound transmitting Gu is not a one-time use. That thing will squat in both sides' ears, guiding and transmitting calls through Qi at any time. After obtaining the martial arts, Chen Duo quickly learned and abandoned what she had originally learned, switching to practicing Gu Dao. Have you finished reading it? Then let's move on. The instructor saw Chen Dao and Chen Duo looking up and immediately called the nearby instructor to continue teaching. He doesn't care whether Chen Dao and Chen Duo have learned it or not. Anyway, for him, as long as the Gu body holy child understands it and follows his instructions and energy guidance, there's no need to really learn it. The next one to come up surprised Chen Dao, because this person is not using Gu, he is a wild Maoshan. The second one is Yimao Mountain. What about the other three? Chen Dao's gaze changed as he secretly looked at the sect leader. Well, you don't have to say anything, you're really amazing.